Thanks, guys. Great to be here. And so, wow, I could not be more encouraged by this news. The dominoes are falling on the reading quackery that really crippled several generations of young Americans. Truly incredible. The Teachers College at Columbia University has been kind of the bastion of this quackery, the nerve center of the machine that pushed this evil into our schools for over half a century now. And now it's all crumbling. Earlier this month, the Teachers College at Columbia University, they announced in a press release, quietly released though, that they were shutting down their so-called Reading and Writing Project, which should have been more accurately called Making Sure Children Don't Ever Read or Write Project. They also got rid of its tenured ringleader, the literacy professor, Lucy Calkins. I guess she's tenured, so they didn't technically get rid of her. They sent her on indefinite sabbatical, but she's gone anyway. And at the same time, and certainly the two are related. School districts all across the United States, including New York City, where Columbia University is, are dropping her quack reading programs. Unfortunately for the victims of this quackery, there have not been any apologies. There have not been any plans announced to help provide compensation or restitution to the victims, or even to teach them how to read. But folks, really, this is so encouraging. So we've talked many times. I've spoken with you many times about the difference between teaching reading and this quackery. So teaching reading, you teach kids that each letter is a symbol. Each symbol stands for one or more sounds, like a P makes a P sound, right? Well, in the quack methods pushed by Calkins and company, they're actually just teaching kids to memorize words and guess at the words that they don't know and use context clues and look at the pictures. I mean, it's not really reading; it's quackery, right? And what happens is these kids then get reading disabilities, dyslexia, etc. This stuff has literally been debunked since the mid 1800s when Horace Mann tried it out in the government schools he was building in Massachusetts. And of course, progressive godfather of education, John Dewey, an actual socialist, founder of the humanist religion, actually resurrected this quackery back in the early 1900s, and he knew full well the damage it would do. He actually started an experimental school at the University of Chicago with Rockefeller money, turned a bunch of kids into illiterates, and said that'll be perfect, and then moved over to Teachers College, where he helped promote this evil all over the country. So anyways, the announcement from Teachers College, it was a big giant word salad, meaning nothing, diversity, inclusion, equity, blue. And then, by the way, moving forward, Teachers College must foster more conversations and collaboration among different evidence-based approaches to literacy and ensure our programs are aligned with the needs of teachers and districts looking to partner. So there you go. They realize that the fraud is coming to an end. Now, it's like a few publications wrote about this. Psychology Today, which is hardly a right-wing conservative publication, they described what was happening at Columbia's Teachers College like this. It said it was breaking the shackles of 4 decades of what the new administration views as past adherence to flawed reading philosophy and ideology divorced from cognitive science. The author there, Dr. J. Richard Gentry, described as an expert in childhood literacy, he says the impetus for these sweeping changes comes not only from boots on the ground teachers, but also parents who say they're fed up with schools where their teachers do not learn to read. Wonder why they'd be fed up with that. I can't imagine why. They say that some reading teachers lament that they were not prepared by higher education, or in some cases were given incorrect methodologies. Duh. Universities are hearing their voices. So he goes on to say that there's also intense political pressure to bring up the failing reading scores. And he talks about current science. This is not current science. I mean, since phonics has existed for thousands of years, that's how you teach reading in a phonetic writing system. But he says, anyway, the current science shows that explicit, systematic, and phonics and spelling instruction is how children learn to read. Duh, right? I mean, you didn't need a reading expert to tell you that. Now, the far left New York Times picked up the story. They said it marks the end of an era for Teachers College and perhaps another setback for balanced literacy, the embattled movement in which Dr. Calkins is one of several prominent leaders. Okay. Yes, she is one of several prominent leaders. And they add that it comes amid intense political pressure on schools of education to better align teacher training with research. So the New York Post, Rupert Murdoch propaganda outlet, they celebrated this. They said this change is good, but it doesn't do anything for the generations of American children who were damaged by this. They say the least we can do is call out the damage done, and we agree, right? This is horrific what has been done to tens of millions of Americans innocent Americans who now are reading disabled for their whole lives. So it looks like the education establishment is finally surrendering on this front after several generations of dumbing down Americans with this quackery, turning them into functional illiterates. At the top of the pyramid, they knew what they were doing. John Dewey knew what he was doing. His disciples knew what they were doing. Your average classroom teacher, of course, had no idea. But folks, this cannot be the last word, right? From Dewey to his operatives to the Marxist Frankfurt School, Teachers College has been really one of the main organizations responsible, along with the U.S. Department of Education, the NEA, with John Dewey served as honorary life president. They've been one of the main organizations responsible at Teachers College for dumbing down and indoctrinating and weaponizing generations of Americans against their families, their countries, and their church, and of course, making them into illiterates, so they couldn't read their Bibles, they couldn't read a history book. We cannot just allow this, right? It's time for accountability, and I think Miss Calkins needs to be brought in somewhere under oath and ask some real questions about what she knew, when she knew it, and why she continued this quackery. Thanks, guys.